Welcome back. Episode 4 this week, and we're just right back at it. More of the same, to be honest. Um, we open on Coruscant with kind of a cool training sequence with the Padawans and stuff. I thought it was fine. People are shitting on the look of Coruscant, which, to be honest, is the least of our concerns. I think it's fine. Really don't think it's that big of a deal. But we get some cool. I don't know. I enjoy seeing lots of Jedi, and that's really what I wanted from the sequel trilogy was to see kind of like a reestablished thing, more of like the Old Republic, where you have lots of Jedi and lots of Sith. That's what I wanted. Um, but we didn't get that. Um, and we get to see some more behind the scenes stuff, and yeah, it was fine. But among these scenes, one of the people that we see that people are making a big deal about, and on two accounts, and it is a big deal, I think, on more specifically one account. So Ki-Adi-Mundi is just in this show, which everybody thought he was just another one of his species or his race or whatever, but no, they went out of their way to credit him as Ki-Adi for a reason. Let's hope we get an explanation for that reason. But as of right now, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. One, they changed his birth, but he was kind of like a side character, so they changed his birth to make it work with whatever reason that they have. And until they give us the reason, I don't think that's as like awful as it could be. Again, that is like some of the least of our concerns, but when you start adding up all of these things, you see that they're just kind of taking whatever liberties they want to take. And that's where I think more of the problem comes in. But more specifically, given that it's his explanation for why the Sith had been gone for so long, but then there's this whole thing where they clearly know there's a dude around, and unless all these people die and they never get back and tell them that he had a red lightsaber, then they just believe that it was a splinter Jedi Order, which I don't know. So him being there, no matter how you want to slice it, creates problems. So that's not great. But Sol, Osha, and gang go to the planet to go to Kelnaka, and why they had to use this little tracking gopher, I don't really know. They seem to find people without much hassle in the past, so again, least of our concerns. But again, it's all stacked up at this point. So we get shortly after they get on the planet, we get another weird back and forth scene. I don't know if they just bring in a random person to write Yord and his character, because he goes from being a dick to Osha to being a caring person to Osha to being a dick, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Are they at odds? Are they friends? Did they have a friendship? Do they care? Consistency is out the window. Nobody cares. I get he's supposed to be like a by the books Jedi, and maybe that's part of his struggle as he dips into being like more of a normal person, and then has to put himself back on track to uphold the values of the Jedi or whatever. But if that's the case, it is not done very well, because on screen it just looks incredibly inconsistent. And they're going through the forest at the same time. May and Kamir are going through the forest. They come across this kind of spooky sequence with these big moth creatures, and you think maybe there's gonna be a fight sequence of some kind with a bunch of these things waking up, and maybe they have to move quickly to get away from these things, something kind of tense and interesting. Nope. Wake up one, kill it, and that's it. They wander off. Okay. Kamir and May. Kamir apparently is a marathon runner and a hiker, because he's not tired at all, but May is absolutely beat, even though, as far as we know, she's been training for a long time, but whatever. I've seen some stuff saying that she picked that spot for a reason, to string him up when she just decides that she's going to be a good guy now. So Kamir walks off because they needed him off screen so that she could set up this trap, I guess, because otherwise I don't really know what he was doing. And at this point, all of our people are kind of converging into the same spot. And then May screams for help, which they show Soul and gang here. But then it's like they didn't show up at that spot, so they showed up at Kelnaka's house, so I don't know. But Kamir runs, he gets trapped, and then she just decides, you know what, I don't need to do this anymore. I'm done. Because Disney refuses to have any sort of main character of any Star Wars property that is introduced as a bad person stay a bad person. Ever. Unless they're like side characters. But Iden, Reva, and May, all introduced as Imperial or bad people, and they switch up every single time they are the main focus of anything, and I don't really understand why they do this. Like, they could have done a cool, this is a side tangent, if they took, say, like the original, like, Old Republic Sith Acolyte trials on Korriban, and the trial process, like, competing against the other Acolytes and stuff, and had a show, that could have been cool. You could add infighting and, you know, assassination attempts between the different Acolytes and stuff, and see these cool old ruins and stuff. They could have done cool stuff with that. Could have done some spooky shit with that. Would have worked as well. I doubt we'll ever get that because it's all about Acolytes and bad people doing bad things. So they just won't do that, which is unfortunate. So May's grand plan is that she's going to turn herself into Kelnaka, even though she's already killed 2 Jedi, but then they're going to take it easy on her because she knows what exactly about the Sith. They just had a whole conversation about they don't really know shit about this guy, but then she says, hey, I've got information they want. What information? That he wears a black helmet? And he has a red lightsaber? Does that help anybody? Not really. I don't know. I don't really know what her plan is in that regard, because she doesn't know shit. So, it's not super useful. So she goes to Kelnaka's house, and this asshole's dead. Because they did it with Indara. You have Jedi Trinity, people are excited, they want to see it. You have Wookiee Jedi, people are excited, they want to see it. Well, they're both fucking dead instantly. So, and they said that, they didn't have a fight with this Wookiee Jedi for budgetary reasons. Even though one of these 8 episodes has, like, more of a budget than Godzilla? And I don't get, like, what are they catering? How are they spending so much money? People are shitting on the aesthetics of the show, which I think is not entirely fair. I think it looks fine. Like, there's some shots in this episode where I was like, oh, it looks kind of cool. So I don't think the shot selection and the whatever are as big of a deal as people are making it. But with how expensive the show is, you couldn't afford, like, a couple minute fight sequence. The episode was only 28 minutes. And it's not like you're pressed for time. You're not pressed for money. Why are these decisions being made the way that they're being made? I just don't get it. And then you have Kathleen Kennedy, who says that the show is failing because the audience is primarily male, which just has... nothing's ever going to change because the people who would make those changes clearly see things so wrong. Like, they can't fix the problem because they don't know what the fucking problem is. And that's awful. And somebody made a good point that, like, Fallout did extremely well, and they're probably a more male-dominated fan base than Star Wars is. Star Wars is pretty widespread. So that being your logic and reasoning and justification instead of looking at what the actual problems are is just beyond me. But whatever. So she gets there. Kanaka's dead, because of course he is. All the Jedi show up, try to arrest her. The Sith guy shows up, floats down behind Osha, which again, people also hated on this. I don't really care, as long as it's like if they can super jump. I don't know. It doesn't. Doesn't feel like it's that big of a deal. Now, if they have people start just straight flying with the Force, then that might be a problem. So he floats down, and it is actually really unsettling the way that they did this, and it makes me just wish we could have got more of a Sith-based Acolyte show with this style to it, this kind of horror style. Because he does some cool, like it is neat, and he essentially flicks Osha, and then all the Jedi run him, and he does this big dust cloud force push thing, pushes them all away, and cut to black because they didn't possibly have any more time for dialogue or literally anything at all. Fight sequence, nothing. 28 minutes. It's I was getting exhausted sitting there because it was too long at that point. So yeah, I don't know. I on surface value, I thought the episode was okay. It was fine. But then the more you dwell on it, and then the whole revelation that Kiadi, and then you start asking questions, and there's a lot of weird shit. And I get this is basically a 28-minute episode with people walking through a forest, which people also hate. But again, I thought some of the shots and stuff, it looked fine. I'm not near as whatever about it as a lot of people are. I still think last week's episode was worse. And maybe it's just denial at this point. I'm still optimistic that they can turn it around and give us some sort of explanation for the Coven stuff and who the Sith is and how all this is working and how on earth we get to the explanation in Phantom Menace that we have, because they could have solved this problem by just not setting this show so closely, because it's a new era. You could have done it a long time ago and told the exact same show. They just chose to put it closer, which then causes problems. I don't really get it. So, and if Chimera is not the Sith, then I just don't like the writing, because they're basically shoving it in your face that he is the Sith. And if it turns out to be somebody else, it's not interesting at all, because it's not satisfying when it happens. They're just like, okay, so you basically have this dude telling us that he's the Sith just to subvert our expectations, because that's how Disney tells stories, I guess. I don't know. I would probably give this episode out of 10, with 5 being average, like a 3. Probably a 3. And I feel like that's probably being generous. I still like Soul, but I think Theory actually described it as like you have 10 bland ice cream flavors, and then one is slightly flavored, so you're like, oh, this is delicious. Because as of right now, we don't really have any other context. But I think I like him more than that. We'll just have to see where they go with him, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. I really hope. What do we have? 4 more episodes? 3 or 4 more episodes? I hope they could turn around. I hope we at least get some satisfying fight sequence next week. I think the director for episode 7 is the same as the last flashback episode, so we probably won't get any sort of answers for that until then. So hopefully we get some good stuff over the next 2 episodes, especially with how short this one was. But given the leadership and who's in charge of stuff, I'm not optimistic about it. But I'm along for the ride, so I appreciate you guys being here. I'll see you next week.